Okay, I'm back for another video about stuff that's in ES6. Again, if you're just watching my beginner programming videos and just learned about programming, you might just go back to watching those. This is a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, very technical, but it is interesting and it can be useful. The thing that I talked in the previous video about let and var and the difference between those two things. And you can, for most sketching that I'm going to do in P5 and making weird experiments, I could use them interchangeably and not worry about it too much. But there is another term that you're going to see. You're going to see people say var x if they are using style previous to ES6 or 2015 ECMA script. You're going to see let if people are using ES6, a more modern style of JavaScript. But you're also going to see people using const. And what does const mean? Now, there is no reason you have to ever use const ever. I mean, somebody I'm sure will come up with a reason why you might have to. But what I'm saying is for the things that I'm making, I could just use let, but my code is perhaps a little less efficient in the way that it runs and uses memory. So const is only an option to help with the efficiency of how your program runs and manages memory on the computer. Because if you have some data, if you have a variable in your program that you know its value is never going to change, the computer can be smart about how it stores that information. It doesn't have to leave extra space for extra stuff. Now I'm kind of oversimplifying, but that I think is a useful way to think about it. So for example, if I know that I want to have a variable called cat, and I want to store in it the number 99, I don't need to say let cat if cat is never going to have another value ever. I can say const for constant because cat is going to be a constant. Now here's the interesting thing. This makes sense when it comes to just numbers, but there's more to it than that. What if you're declaring a function? Or what if you're declaring an object? So let's at least first look at the simple scenario of working with numbers. So I'm going to come back over here, and all of this I can do just in the JavaScript console in the browser itself. So if I say let x equal 50, can you guys see this? Let me make it a little bigger. Now I can look at the value of x, and the value of x is 50. And I can say x equals 100, and now the value of x is 100. Let's do this again. Let's say const y equals 50. So now I have a variable called y, which is a constant, and its value is 50. Now I'm going to say y equals 100, uncaught type error, assignment to a constant variable. So you cannot assign to a constant variable. You cannot reassign the value. It's forever 50. So I feel like I need to go back to the whiteboard, but I don't think I do. So what does this mean in terms of objects? It's a little bit strange, and I'm not sure I fully understand this behavior, so I might have to have come back to this a little bit. And I'm seeing Alka putting some interesting suggestions in the chat here. Okay, so let's look at what if I have a particle, constant particle, and the particle has an x and a y. So it's really a JavaScript object. Oh, I made it const. That's fine. We know what it's going to do when it's let particle equal. It's just an object like anything. So this is what it is. It's an object. It has an x and a y. It's a constant. But interestingly enough, when you make an object a constant, that doesn't mean you can't manipulate the inner workings of the object. Like I can actually say particle.x equals 200, and that is totally valid. So I can change those internal variables because those internal variables themselves are not constants. I can even do things like, which surprised me when I first saw this, I can say particle.z equals 50, which means I can add another property to that object. But what I can't do is I can't now say particle equals, I'm going to recreate a new object. I'm going to recreate that object. Uncaught error, assignment to a constant variable. I cannot suddenly say particle is now the string hello. This protects me from making some errors too, because if I'm using a variable, I can't reassign it by accident to something of a different type. So I can't make it a new object. So again, I could use let, but this is something that allows the code perhaps to run a bit faster, to use a little bit less memory. So if you know that this is, and maybe to protect yourself against some errors. So this is a useful technique. And mostly I'm explaining this because when you look at examples, you're going to see it. And a place where you'll see it often, the way that in most of my videos and the way that I've shown how to declare a function is saying function go, like this. This is a function definition. I say function, the name of the function, parentheses with whatever arguments are in there. This is the equivalent of basically saying var go equals function. Or of course, now we know it's actually the equivalent of saying let go equal function if I'm using ES6. So if I'm declaring all these functions, if I'm writing functions into my code, it's often the case that I never want to reassign or alter that function. That function is done. It's a function I'm just intending to use in my code. So you will see this quite a bit. Const go equals function. So you could consider this, again, this is a lot. Let me type this over here so you can see it. So in other words, what I'm saying is, let's say I'm going to have some functions. Function go. That's one way of declaring a function, the way that I typically have done in my videos. But I can say const go equals function. So again, while this might offer some optimization benefits, it doesn't necessarily offer a lot of benefits for teaching and education, especially for beginning programming, which is why I will continue to use the top syntax. Because if I'm going to teach somebody for the first time ever how to write a function, const go equals function is a bit more probably confusing than just function go. So I think that's... So there was actually just an important question in the chat just now. I talked a lot about scope in the previous video, and I probably want to, in some ways now that I think I probably should have made a video just only about the idea of scope. But how does const affect scope? So const also uses block scope. Let and const both use block scope the same exact way. The difference is const is a variable that can never be reassigned. So one thing I should mention is actually in ES6, there's also another way of declaring a function that involves equal, greater than. It looks like an arrow. This is called the arrow syntax. I'm not using this yet. I will come back and make a video about this. So I could go even a step further with how I might declare a function by incorporating this arrow syntax, but I'm not ready for that yet. I got to take little tiny steps into the ES6 pool. Okay, thanks for watching this video about const. I hope this helped. Please ask your questions and offer your corrections in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.